Chicago, what's going on? Sunday, fun day. It's your guy Jimmy here. Hope everybody's having a great weekend. You can see I'm wearing my Greek Island shirt. This is one of my favorite restaurants in Chicago, and I highly recommend next time you're in the city, check it out. It's right there in Greektown in the West Loop on Adams and Halsted, and it's actually right between two of the old Italian neighborhoods. To the south, you got Taylor Street. To the right, you got Grand Avenue. But this is a great place to go, whether you're solo, out on a date, out with family and friends. Great place to go before any Blackhawks, Bulls game, or concert at the United Center. Free valet parking, delicious entrees, a wide variety of Greek American appetizers. The Greeks run it with an iron fist. Definitely one of my go-tos. You see, there's not too many Greek restaurants left in Greektown, especially since COVID. Most of them are all closed. There's only like two left. Now, Greektown is all glass tower condominium buildings, smoke vape shops, and dispensaries. Today, I want to do a story about a trial I went to last week. It was the United States government versus Gene Casano and co-defendant Jack Gallion. But before I drop this story, I want to clear a few things up on the last video that I did. I accidentally used the word shines, and what I was doing was quoting mob boss Sam Giancana when he was sprung from jail with Tony Accardo's approval. He took over the numbers rackets, the numbers policy, which is like the street lottery, from the blacks on the south side. I apologize for using that racial term. Second, I mentioned that for the most part, the Chicago outfit really wasn't involved in drug dealing, unlike some of the guys in Philly or some of the five families in New York. And a lot of my viewers thought that was a bunch of bullshit. But please keep in mind, the vast majority of my stories are from the trials that I went to. For example, the Gus Alex Trial, the Sam Carlisi trial. There was not one word mention of drugs. Same with Bobby Salerno, Mike Sarno, Betty Lauren Maltese, Mario Ranone, and even the Family Secrets trial. Not one witness, none of the government's evidence had anything to do with narcotics. Now, I'm sure there's some made guys and associates that dabbled in drugs or made quite a bit of money selling narcotics. But for the most part, generally speaking, the Chicago outfits stayed clear of that. And last but not least, God forbid I butcher or mispronounce somebody's name. Don't make a big deal out of it. Bill Stacks, chatting with Stacks, refers to me as Costanza instead of Cosenza. It's no big deal. I don't say anything. But let's get into it. Last week, Wednesday, were opening statements against this gentleman here, one of the main defendants, Gene Casano. The government alleged that him and co-defendant Jack Gallion used violence to collect on a loan. Now, unfortunately, I missed opening statements on Wednesday, and like I said before, in my opinion, the best part of a trial is a good opening and a strong closing argument. You could usually make your decision based on that alone. However, I did make it in court Thursday afternoon, and I saw four of the government's witnesses take the stand. And there was a little bit of drama, and all hell broke loose at the end of the day. The very next day, federal judge Sharon Coleman called a mistrial, which is unheard of in the Dirksen Federal Building. In the 25 plus federal trials I went to, and the 10 plus state trials I went to, there was never once a hung jury or a mistrial. 99% of the time, all the defendants are found guilty, with the exception of one time. And I'm going back to the early 1990s through the mid 2000s. Recently, I went to Alderman Eddie Burke's trial. As we all know, he's one of the longest, most powerful aldermen in Chicago. Him and two co-defendants were on trial right there at the Dirksen Federal Building. And Alderman Burke's right-hand man, this guy we'll call Pete, was actually found not guilty. That's a shocker. As we all know, our federal prosecutors are some of the best in the country, and they very seldom lose a case. This isn't like New York, where some of the Gotti trials, they were found not guilty. It's definitely not like LA, where you had Rob Blake kills his wife at one of his favorite Italian restaurants. The jury came back with a not guilty verdict. Then you had 5'6" LA police officers brutally beat Rodney King with sticks, all caught on video. All 5'6" officers were found not guilty. Then you had O.J. Simpson brutally butchers his beautiful wife Nicole, and Ron Goldman found not guilty. Melendez brothers, these guys shotgun blasted their parents while they were watching TV and reloaded and blasted them again. First trial hung jury. In Illinois, this doesn't happen. 99.9 of these cases end up in a guilty verdict for all defendants. They do a tremendous job cooperating everything these low-life witnesses say. And again, you're talking a 3, 4, 5-year investigation. They don't even bring it to trial unless they know it's a slam dunk. So for this judge, Judge Sharon Coleman, to call a mistrial, that's unheard of. But a little bit about Gene. He's 55 years old, from Addison, and his brother Dominic Casano was an alleged Chicago outfit associate out of the Elmwood Park crew. Gene owns a very successful video gaming business. And when I seen him in court Thursday, he was surrounded by his dream team of defense attorneys. He was in a nice suit, very similar to this, a little overweight, but you could see the stress and the toll that this indictment and trial had on him. He's definitely aged, and you can see he's had some serious bags under his eyes. Not sure if him or co-defendant Gallion slept very well. But according to the government, this man loaned the victim in this case, Luigi. Luigi was a guy who's always in and out of trouble, somewhat of a fuck-up drug dealer, drug smuggler. No bank in the world would ever loan this guy money. And in my opinion, Gene was nice enough to loan him money. The government alleged that Casano loaned Luigi $10,000. Luigi only paid him back $2,000 and was ghosting him and ducking him and the rest after numerous failed attempts. According to the government, Gene sent a couple of his goons to Luigi's house to tune him up and send him a message. During the trial Thursday, when there was a break in the courtroom, this guy could not sit still. He kept pacing back and forth, something I've never seen before. But while the trial was going on and while the jury was in the courtroom, he sat there next to his lawyers, obviously on his best behavior. He had two younger guys there. I don't know if they were his family or friends there in court. They sat right in front of me, obviously there to support him. And that's when you know that these trials are real. That's when it hits home, when you see some of the defendants or victims' family members. But this is Gene Casano, main defendant at this particular trial. Now here's a co-defendant, Jack Gallion. He was out on bond along with Gene. He was in court with his beautiful Italian wife in the gallows supporting him. And you could just tell, like I said with Gene, that this trial indictment definitely took its toll. He had some serious baggage under his eyes. Poor guy looked like he hasn't slept in a couple days, but you could tell just by looking at him, even though he wasn't real big like Gene, definitely a tough guy. Kind of looked like a hockey player. But the government alleged that when Luigi was driving from Lake Geneva to his home in Bloomingdale, that this man here cold-cocked him, punched him in the face. He knocked him unconscious. The government's witness said when he looked up, he saw this man standing over him with a towel. And the government alleged that he shattered several bones in the guy's face and broke his nose. Towards the end of court on Thursday, something I don't normally do, because I don't know these guys, although I've seen Gene and him out and about before, meaning I've seen him at 2 of the street festivals in the summertime. I've also seen him at a bar and a couple restaurants that I hang out with. 2 of the witnesses, Luigi and this other con man, when asked how do they know Jack Gallion, they said they know him from the coffee club, which I thought was kind of cute. Coffee club meaning they know him from seeing him at one of the social clubs. Now, towards the end of court one day, I actually wished him good luck, something I normally don't do. And he smiled. He said, thank you. I let him know that I'm kind of rooting for him. But during these federal trials, these guys know they're in deep shit. Even though they have some of the best attorneys money can buy, they know what they're guilty or not guilty of. And probably one of the worst positions to be, sitting in that huge courtroom going up against the United States government. As I mentioned, these 2 defendants had the dream team, if you will. Most of the time, in most of the trials I've been to, it seems like the government prosecutors, the assistant state's attorneys are a little more savvy, more professional, more polished than some of the defense attorneys. But in this case, it was just the opposite. Gene and Jack had a dream team of a defense. Here you got Damian Sharonis, a guy I've gotten to know over the years, one of the best attorneys in Chicago. He represented Jack Gallion. He actually, during cross-examination of one of the government's witnesses, they kind of went back and forth. And the old man actually called Damon a liar and accused him of representing criminals. The judge removed the jury from the courtroom, called the sidebar. But him being a professional, experienced defense attorney, he kept his cool and got through the cross-examination. But I'll never forget, first time I ever met him, I seen him at the Family Secrets trial in 2007, and he represented Anthony Twan Doyle. Twan was a crooked Chicago cop, an associate of the 26th Street crew, and a good friend of Frank Calabrese. Unfortunately for Twan, he did not listen to his lawyer, Damon, Daryl Goldberg, and Ralph Metchick. After seeing Joey and Frank Calabrese fail on the witness stand, Twan thought he could get up there and outsmart the federal prosecutors. He failed miserably. All the defendants were found guilty. A few years later, I seen Damien represent Mark Pulchman at the Mike Sarno trial. Mark Pulchman, as most of us know, is a high-ranking outlaw gang member, still in custody today. And most of that trial, at the Sarno trial, most of that evidence was all against Mark Pulchman. I remember saying to Damien, no offense, but it seems to me that the prosecutors are a little more savvy, a little more polished. And he kind of laughed. He said, Jimmy, no, that's not true. We're all good lawyers. We all went to good law schools. They have all the evidence. He's absolutely right. This guy, Damon here, also represented that lowlife Harvey Weinstein, as well as high-ranking gang members, drug dealers, and other Chicago mob outfit guys and associates, but one of the best attorneys in Chicago. Here, part of the dream team representing Gene, you got veteran mob attorney Tom Breen. Tom Breen represented all the Chicago outfit guys back in the day, and I remember him during the family secrets trial when Nick Calabrese testified that Jimmy Marcello was one of the men that took part in the making ceremony led by Iupa and Tornabini. When he cross-examined Nick Calabrese, he was really pressing him. He called him a liar, called him a coward, and said, there's no way Jimmy Marcello is a made member of Chicago outfit because his mother is Irish. Excellent point Tom Breen brought up, but unfortunately it fell on deaf ears. And as we all know, Jimmy Marcello was found guilty. But Tom Breen, representing Gene, declared a mistrial 3 times because of the prosecutor, and some of their witnesses. They broke a few rules, and a veteran lawyer like this isn't going to tolerate that. But if, God forbid, you or your family or friend ever get in any trouble, you definitely want to call Tom Breen. This man loves Jack Daniels. And like I said before, some of these defense attorneys are drinkers. Why? Because they need to take the edge off. There's a lot of pressure on these guys. And now to round up the dream team, also representing Gene Casano, you got Todd Pugh. Now, this guy looks like somebody we would pick on or fuck with when we were in high school. But now look at him, one of the best defense attorneys in Chicago. And when I talk about defense attorneys, guys like Joe Lopez, Ralph Metchik, Damian Sharonis, the old Eddie Jensen, Ralph Metchik, and others, Sam Adams, I've never seen any of them ever win. However, this guy, during the Alderman Burke trial, he represented Burke's right-hand man, Pete, and Pete was actually found not guilty. So it was a huge victory for Pugh and his client. And now you got Pugh representing Gene Casano. He cross-examined some of the witnesses on Thursday. He was also one of the lawyers that demanded a mistrial. But one of the best attorneys right here, Todd Pugh. Now here's federal judge Sharon Coleman. She presided over this trial. And this woman, I actually like her style. She has a personality, right? And unlike most federal judges, she was somewhat pro-defense, where 90% of the federal judges are all pro-prosecution. They allow certain evidence in. They withhold certain evidence. But she actually cracked a couple jokes. She could tell she works with the attorneys on both sides, but she also lets them know that she's definitely the one in charge. And to make a long story short, after numerous sidebars and a few hostile witnesses, she finally, Friday morning, declared a mistrial. She actually had the balls to declare a mistrial. Now, it's not uncomfortable it's not uncommon for a defense attorney to demand a mistrial because there was a few mistakes made. But very, very seldom does a federal judge declare a mistrial. Last Friday, to everyone's surprise, she declared a mistrial. Now, most likely the federal government will try Casano and Gallion again because they're relentless. But me personally, I think it's a big waste of taxpayers' time and money to try these guys again. So it was somewhat of a victory for Gene and Jack Gallion. I'm sure they slept great this weekend, but they also have that indictment hanging over their head, and more likely than not, they will be charged again. What do you guys think? You think this is a waste of time and taxpayers' money, or should they try these guys again? I think we got much bigger fish to fry. Now, I don't have a photo of the victim in this case, the government's main witness, and I missed his testimony. He was the first witness called Wednesday after the opening statements, but it was a guy called Luigi Musino, a guy who's somewhat of a fuck-up, in and out of jail, a drug dealer, a drug smuggler. He's the one that borrowed the money from Gene. paid him back $2,000, owed him $8,000, and then blew him off. At first, Luigi was not going to even press charges or bring this up to the authorities. 2 agents approached him at Starbucks and said, "Hey, bro, what happened to your face? You want to talk about this?" He said, "No, it was no big deal, just something over gambling." But it was Luigi's freaking wife that demanded and put pressure on Luigi to come forward. And a lot of times, some of these top defense attorneys, when they get one of these government witnesses, they're very easy to attack and destroy on the stand. But no matter how good of a job the defense does during cross, for some reason, a lot of these juries find some of these lowlifes credible. And again, the prosecutors do a great job of tying everything up. Now let's go to some of the witnesses that I seen. One of the first witnesses they called in court Thursday afternoon was a beautiful Italian girl. She took the stand and basically testified that she used to be married to defendant Jack Gallion. She said that they only were married for 3 months, and that her family and Gallion's family owned a pizzeria in Bloomingdale. It eventually went under. They split apart. But it was interesting because there's Jack Gallion sitting at the defense table having to listen to his ex-wife testify against him while his present wife was sitting in court. So just imagine that. Present wife sitting there listening to the ex-wife testify against her husband. You should have seen Jack Gallion. You could tell he was totally uncomfortable. He kept moving around, fidgeting in the chair. But it reminded me of little Jimmy Marcello. At the family secrets trial, the government had his mistress, a bartender he met from Michael's Magic Touch, which is kind of like a mobbed up bar back then. She testified how little Jimmy was giving her $5,000 a month. She talked about all the jewelry he bought her, all the vacations they went on, her high posh condominium he paid for. He even paid the medical bills for her kid that had special needs. That's what kind of man Jimmy Marcello was. And what does she do? Rats him out and testifies against him. But the worst part of her testimony, you had Marcello's family in court listening to this. Jimmy Marcello wanted to hide under a rock. He was literally covering his face with his hand, and he had his sport jacket covering half of his face. But the government, as we know, they're relentless. They're relentless. They're going to come after you. Now, the second witness called Thursday afternoon when I was in court, I'll never forget it, was this guy here. This was Salvatore Musino, 77-year-old old zip from Italy. This guy could barely hear, could barely speak English, but he was Luigi, the victim's father. He was doing okay during direct by the prosecution, but as soon as Damien and Todd Pugh cross-examined him, he became a hostile witness. He acted like he couldn't hear. He acted like he didn't understand. He actually accused Damien of being a liar and told him, "You represent criminals." The judge stopped the proceedings, cleared the jury out of the courtroom, reprimanded him, reprimanded the prosecution. There was a little bit of drama involved. Later on, it resumed. The prosecutor asked if he could please continue his testimony, and that Your Honor warn him, reprimand him, that if he acts out again, she'll take him into custody. So after everybody calmed down, he resumed his testimony. Damien, Mark Pugh continued their cross-examination of him, and everything worked out. And I doubt that Judge Sharon Coleman would have locked up a 77-year-old man. But this guy was a real character, man. I can just imagine what his son was like. But he testified that Mean Gene Casano called him one day at one of his restaurants He testified that he knew Casano for over 30 years and that he was a good guy. And he said it 2-3 times, really good people. But I guess Casano called him up telling him that, hey, your son Luigi owes this money. I loan him money. He's not paying me back. What are we going to do about it? And he said that he couldn't do anything about it. He was broke. His restaurant was going under. He had his own problems. But when the prosecutor asked, did he threaten you? This old man said, no, he never once threatened me. He also fucked up and started talking a little bit shit about his son Luigi, the victim in this case. He said that ever since his son was a little boy, he was always in trouble. The kid was so bad that the old man even sent him to boarding school. But this is Salvatore Musino, Zip from Italy, father of the victim, and he owned a restaurant in Bloomingdale. Third witness of the day, I forget his name. I don't have a photo of him. He was a convicted con man, if you will. He got pinched on a $6.5 million scam. He pleaded guilty, decided to cooperate. And for his cooperation, he's looking at maybe 4 years in prison. He also admitted that he was a professional poker player that played in poker tournaments all over the country. He was a drug user, a drug dealer. He also used to sell high-end cars to China and Russia. So this guy and his friends were involved in all kinds of criminal activity, and he was actually good friends with the government's witness, Luigi. He testified that Luigi told him about the beatdown that Gallion gave him and what the reason for the beating was. This guy also testified if he knew defendant Jack Gallion. He said he did. He said, where do you know him from? He said, from the coffee club. And what that meant, this scumbag here, government witness, he knew Jack Gallion from the social club in Elmwood Park that Gallion used to hang out at. And then the last government witness of the day, now this is on Thursday, and this is where all hell broke loose. This is right at the end of the day around 4 o'clock. The government called an FBI agent who worked on this case. And prior to the agent's testimony and prior to the trial, the Judge Sharon Coleman made it quite clear to the prosecutor that them or any witness cannot mention the word organized crime. The prosecutor was warned 2-3 times because the defense felt if the jury heard any reference to organized crime, that would look really bad on Gene Casano and Jack Gallion, two of the defendants, and that they wouldn't get a fair trial. See, it's all about defendants getting a fair trial, regardless of the crime. So sure enough, the prosecutor, I forget his name, an older guy, I've never seen him before, wasn't the sharpest tool in the shed. When he got the FBI agent on the stand, he asked him his name. How do you spell your name? What do you do for a living? The agent got up there, pronounced his name, spelled it, said he worked for the FBI, but then he fucked up. He went on to say he's part of a special organized crime task force. As soon as he uttered the words organized crime, the defense lawyers objected. The judge cleared the jury out of the courtroom, and then they had a sidebar. The defense accused the prosecutor of deliberate. Excuse me. The defense attorneys, all three of them, stood up, objected, and demanded that there be a mistrial. This was the third mistrial that they asked for in just 2 days. They accused the government of deliberately asking the agent that leading question. The government, according to the defense attorneys, were trying to get the word in organized crime so the jury hears that just to strengthen their case. And I believe that. So court ended that day with these kind of fireworks going off. And the very next day, Friday morning, The judge agreed with all three defense attorneys and called a mistrial. So we don't know if the prosecutor or the agent did it deliberately or if it was an honest mistake. Obviously, the prosecutor apologized, but the damage was done. Bottom line, this trial ended up in a hung jury because the agent said on the stand he referenced organized crime. Will they try these guys again? Probably. I hope they don't, though. I think it's a big waste of time and money. I think Gene Casano and Jack Gallion suffered enough, and I can just imagine the stress and the hundreds of thousands of dollars it's cost them. But the interesting thing about this indictment is the fact that this is part of a wider spread investigation into the Elmwood Park crew and other crews, specifically gambling and prostitution. So I expect there are probably more indictments and probably a few upcoming trials. That's it, though. Mistrial at the Gene Casano, Jack Gallion trial, something that very rarely happens. Kudos to the judge for having the balls to cause a mistrial. But hopefully this is a wake-up call for these defendants. Thanks a lot, guys. Get out there, enjoy your Sunday afternoon. And again, hit the like button, subscribe, share with my friends. And for a couple of you YouTube smartasses out there, get off the computer, put out the cigarette, take the dog for a walk, and treat the old lady to Olive Garden, will you? Ciao.